Hey guys, this is your girl Lira, and you're listening to Self Reflection Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me on another episode of Self Reflection Podcast. I pray and I hope that this podcast episode finds you guys in the best possible state that you could be in for yourself. And if you're not doing your best, like always, I want to remind you in this moment to create a moment for self-reflection, prioritize yourself, prioritize your mental health. And if you need to seek counseling or if you need to talk to someone, please go ahead and reach out. Sometimes we just might not have the answers for ourselves. Sometimes we need somebody else's opinion or feedback or thoughts. So if you are not feeling your best in this moment, please go ahead and, seek that support and don't be afraid to do so, right? You're not alone on this journey. We're together. Thank you guys again for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. I am excited to be here. Today we have a guest on Self Reflection Podcast. Actually, guys, this is going to be the opening podcast for our season 3. So I am super excited to start season 3 in this way because we are going to be talking about self-reflection and self-love and everything that has to do with self. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for subscribing to Self Reflection Podcast. The past 4 years has been amazing. We have had an amazing strive on Self Reflection Podcast. So I am excited to get this new season going. So let's not waste no more time. Let's get into Self Reflection Podcast. Today we are talking to Ryan Jackson. Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. And kicking off season 3 is a lot of pressure, but I feel like you're one for sure.
I should have told you that, huh?
It's all good. It'll be fun.
Thank you. Before we get into our podcast episode for today, can you please give our family out there a little bit of a background of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ryan Justin Jackson. I grew up on the West Coast in California. I am the son of a motivational speaker and my father, and a mindfulness and meditation teacher and my mother. And between the two of them, they always really instilled the importance of me of one being in the present moment while going after what you want at the same time. So it feels like a bit of a dichotomy, but they're actually both very much related. Grew up in the entertainment industry, worked for Disney for a long time, doing producing, video, did a little bit of on-air work as an entertainment news reporter, stayed a long career in entertainment and communications. And throughout my corporate career, a lot of people in the corporate space have kind of asked me and say, hey, you always give off a very calm vibe. What do you do? And, I always mentioned meditation in my spiritual practice. And my mom was amazing because she took us around to all different types of spiritual modalities, from Zen Buddhism to Christianity. My grandmother was Jewish, and so her philosophy was expose us to all of it and let you discover what's true for you. And what I found in all these various disciplines is that there's a kernel of truth in all of it, which is really self-love, higher tapping into your higher self, which is your God self, and love is the cornerstone of that, and be an expression of that. So through that, I have taught mindfulness and meditation in the consulting firm that I work at now, and community centers here in Atlanta, and have also started to bring this word online, which is how I met Lira, through TikTok. Still trying to learn out the social media thing. I was never really a social media guy, but I just got inspired to share, and I've been really heartened by the people who have resonated with the message, because I think the message is really just turning people back into their own selves and turning off the world a little bit and hearing more of who you are. So that's my mission, is just to share more of this. And this year I'll also be releasing a book, and as well as a journal on self-reflection, really tuning into your own dreams and your own aspirations, and what is the process for doing that, and what is getting in your way, and how do you let go of those blocks?
My goodness, that was a handful, but I love that your mother kind of exposed you to different, I would quote unquote religions, or, a practice to be able to ground yourself. I do know that, they're all interconnected in a way. And that's something that society hasn't really talked about. We don't really talk about it in a sense that I don't know, I'm just going to use the word religion because it kind of sums it up, right? Every one of them has that connection to each other, which I think is the beautiful thing about self-reflection, because it lets you know no matter which practice you take, it all leads to one, and which is that love that you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. And I think it's unfortunate sometimes when we can use religion to divide each other when I think it's actually unifying. There's a phrase I love that says that there's many rivers that lead to the ocean, and there's many ways to get to God. So however you get there, I think, however you get there. But I think at the core of it is, are you loving yourself and you're loving others? And then I have no problem with the way you get there, because that's what we're all striving for in the end.
Absolutely. Going to dive into our conversation for today. Thank you for that amazing intro there. The first thing that we're going to talk about is overcoming feelings of unworthiness. Why do most of us feel this way? And how can we move past this feeling?
Yeah, I think I think it's so individual for so many people, right? I think the feeling of unworthiness, it could stem from childhood. Your environment has so much to do with it. I think at the core of it, it is, feeling that you should be somewhere that you're not, or comparing yourself and thinking that somehow what's happening now should be different. When that's not the case. Like this is a journey. Life is a journey, and we are on a pathway for evolution and growth. And so if you have this expectation that you should be different or this should be different, and then you're comparing yourself, then it's natural to feel that sense of unworthiness. But when you understand that this is all part of a process, and that there's nowhere to go, that the going is within, it's the here and now, then the self-worthiness starts to fall away. One of my favorite books, I read this book called The Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And there's this astronaut who had talked about, if you want to become an astronaut, or excuse me, if you want to go to outer space, don't become an astronaut, because the likelihood of you actually getting to outer space is slim to none, because it's just so competitive in that industry. And what you really have to practice and fall in love with is everything else surrounding being an astronaut, training on the space station, teaching others about the space station, supporting the astronauts who are actually out there in outer space on the space station. And I thought it was a wonderful metaphor for life, because so often we are waiting for these liftoff moments. We're waiting to reach outer space. We're trying to get to the moon, and then we are feeling unhappy or unworthy because we are not there yet, when you just have to fall in love with the process of everything else. And those moments may come, but they're really in the long run insignificant, because the journey, the falling in love with the here and now, that's what it's about. And so I think it's a practice, and people don't understand that. I think they should just feel good, that it just happens to them, that they feel worthy, when it takes a reminding of yourself constantly who you are, the truth about what you are, who you are, where you're going, to remember that I'm doing all right, that things are okay, that I'm actually on my path. And so it's a constant reminder, and it's a practice.
Yeah. And what are some some action practice people can take to start to get on that path?
You know what? I think it's first dealing with the feeling of unworthiness. And so asking yourself why, what belief am I carrying that is keeping me from discovering who I truly am? And that takes a little bit of quiet and self-reflection. But if you ask the question, it will come to you. And so the process that I literally do every morning, that I start every morning and I write down, I do a mind map. A mind map is if you haven't heard of it, please look it up. But it's an extension of kind of how your brain thinks. So you form a question in the middle, and then you do offshoots of like, okay, so I ask myself, what is in the way now? I may be feeling unworthy about what someone said at work. I have a flat tire, that makes me feel bad. Oh, I was thinking about the thing that I said to my wife, and that's on my mind, whatever the case may be. And then you sit and ask yourself, what is the feeling associated with that thought? And it's often the feeling, because our feelings carry with it a bunch of thousands of thoughts. And oftentimes it's just letting go of the feeling, and the thoughts go with it. So first and foremost, asking yourself, what is the belief that is in the way? And then two, once you actually sit down that process of sitting with the feeling, and a lot of people try to get rid of the feeling, but you actually don't want to get rid of it because it is a friend, it's a messenger, it's telling you something about yourself that you need to evaluate. So
Yeah.
once you sit with the feeling, it will pass like clouds passing through a sky. And then once that feeling passes, deliberately showing yourself that you can cultivate a feeling of appreciation and self-worth and self-worthiness. And if you can't do it for yourself in that moment, think about something else that may give you appreciation and joy. For me, oftentimes I just look outside and I see the sun shining and the trees and the abundance of the universe. And that reminds me how abundant this place is. And so that's the small process that I would use.
I love that, and also it just brings us back to appreciating the little things that we have in our life and appreciating the things that we actually have going on, right? I know for myself, doing this podcast sometimes, especially in the middle journey of like the 2-year mark, right? I felt as if it needed to be somewhere else other than where it was, right? And I feel like if it would have taken off a lot more sooner, or if I had had a growth that I feel like I didn't deserve, I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I needed to learn to be able to get it to where it is today. So I love the message there. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
We're going to move on to the next question, the journey to finding inner peace, because I also believe that, feeling unworthy takes away that peace, whatever it's peace of self, peace of mind, right? Peace of allowing you to be in the present moment.
Yeah.
In the moment of finding peace, right? Transforming other people's negative talks, because sometimes our peace of mind isn't taken away by us, but it is also taken away by what people say to us or about us, right? How do we build self-love in that space and resilience?
Yeah. Well, first, that understand that no one can take your peace unless you give them your peace. And so, oftentimes we feel that someone said something, and that's the reason that I feel the way I do. When the reality is someone said something and a part of me is in agreement with it. And that's why I feel the way, or a part of me is afraid that it might be true. And that's why I feel the way I do. And so actually, people are irrelevant. And when I post on TikTok, sometimes I make videos and people ask, well, that sounds like being a doormat. That sounds like you just let people beat up on you. That's not the message at all. Self-love obviously means protecting yourself and not letting yourself be mistreated.
Yeah.
But then once you're out of that place of mistreatment, sometimes people are having these energetic holds where they're still thinking about that person and that situation and that. And they don't realize that they're still in the cycle of abuse through their own mind. It's not even happening, but it's in your own mind. And so that is a practice of bringing yourself back into the present moment, because we're assailed by the past, which isn't here, and we're assailed by thoughts of the future, which isn't here yet. But the past, which is gone, and the future, which isn't here yet.
Yeah.
And so it's the practice of returning ourselves to the here and now. And that is a moment of meditation in which you are focusing on your body, focusing on your breath, listening to the sounds around you. And when you are present and those thoughts fall away, there's nothing but you here, and there's peace and there's silence. But again, it is a practice, and that's one thing that I have always emphasized in my teachings, is that it is a practice. So I'm not saying that what people say to you is insignificant or that you should allow people to mistreat you.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that they can only do so with your agreement.
I 100% agree with that. How do you build resilience in that space?
Yeah, I think resilience comes with continuing to practice. It comes with making the decision to no longer give your agreement to anything that may be disturbing you. And so it is a constant decision to come back inward. In Course in Miracles, it talks about how your power lies in denying the negative thoughts that may be occurring, denying the things that you think can hurt you, denying your fears. And so it is when you have a thought or when you have something that you're thinking about that feels uncomfortable, it is recognizing that this is an opportunity, that it's not here to hurt you, it's here to remind you, like driving a car and you hit the rumble strips that are shaking the car, telling you to move back into the lane because you're veering too far off. So using that as a reminder, say, oh, I need to sit down and write down some appreciation that I feel about myself. I need to look around my environment and say, you know what, I may not have this, I may not have that, but think about what I do have.
Yeah.
What is going well in my life? What do I appreciate? And those little practices of reminding yourself of what is going good, all the opportunities that are available for you. I think that's the resilience. That is the resilience in reminding yourself that there is so much great things out here for you, but we don't see it if we are focused on the things that we think aren't going well.
Absolutely. And how do we begin to reprogram the brain in this space, especially after trauma?
I'm not a doctor in this space, so I don't want to, in terms of like reprogram the brain, I do want to encourage people who feel like they have, as you mentioned at the top of your podcast, real trauma. Like I do think professional help is necessary. But you know what, the happiness practice, actually writing down gratitude. There is a study that shows that 17% of our accomplishments, like our accomplishments, only indicate 17% of our happiness. Right. So it's not the things that happen. That's not the things that we accumulate. It's not the things that we do. It really is a deliberate practice of writing down what you are grateful for and reminding yourself of that. So every single morning, the thing that I do, what I find helpful is writing down what I'm grateful for. And studies show that there's, of course, the gratitude practice, but writing down what you're grateful for in the past 24 hours, because our brain is designed to scan for threats. But we can retrain it to scan for opportunities and things that recently happened that we feel grateful for. So I might just write down, hey, I'm grateful for the fact that right now I get to be in this podcast with Lira. I'm grateful for that pancakes that I had this morning, the gluten-free pancakes, by the way, vegan gluten-free, by the way, is what I had this morning. Small little things that seem trivial like that. But again, it is the practice of continuing to reprogram your brain, looking for good things, opportunities, as opposed to looking towards what we perceive as threats.
And why does the mind travel? If this might be, like you said, I'm a doctor here, but why does the mind love to travel back to the past? Because when we think about it, most of our thoughts are in the past. If the present isn't something that you practice.
We're at the core of us, we're still animals, right? We are still, if we were back in our hunter and gatherer days, we would be out in the jungle and we would have to remember that the saber-toothed tiger was over there and that the poison ivy is over there and all those things that, we have to remember that to keep ourselves alive. But we're using those kind of prehistoric instincts and bringing that into the modern age where they're not necessary. And so, again, we're using, instead of the saber-toothed tiger, we're using that conversation with our boss. We're using traffic. We're using that disagreement with a friend, and using those experiences to now be the new saber-toothed tiger that we feel that we have to guard ourselves against. And that is the reminder that actually that's unnecessary, and it creates unnecessary trauma and stress. And so, again, I go back to the idea of it being a practice, and bringing yourself again back into the present moment is the only way to, I think, to escape the past, because the past will always be there. Like it's not going anywhere. It happened, but you can bring yourself back into the moment where all that starts to fade away with an awareness of what's here and now.
Yeah. And one of the practices that I've also done for myself to be able to push myself forward and not be so much in the past is to find a project that takes my mind off not whatever happened in the past, but find something that I can put all my energy into and allow that to be my new reality, and not just to use it as a coping skill, but to be able to rewrite that story. And as we move forward, I think that's one of the ways that I've found myself becoming more in the present by just like loving what I'm doing in the moment and finding something to be passionate about. Please go ahead and add. I feel.
No, I mean, I love that. I love meditation, but there's many ways to meditate. Like you say, it could be a project, it could be going for a run, it could be exercise. But I love the idea too of reframing, because again, we look at the past and we think that something somewhere went wrong, as opposed to reminding ourselves, hey, maybe that's exactly what I needed to advance, to grow, to evolve. And maybe it's setting me up for something that I can't yet see. But that experience, as much as I didn't want it to happen, has now given me the experience, the tools, the knowledge to be able to prepare me for a life that's even better and more expansive than I realized and would not have been had I not gone through that experience.
Yeah, absolutely agree. How does the mind works? If you want to add on to a little bit of that, like.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor in this space. I just I'm a dude who loves to meditate and share my knowledge. But I guess
this.
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I found is that the mind will always go back, right? We are designed to scan for threats, and so I think it's being compassionate with myself.
Yeah,
it's loving the fact that the mind does that and using it as an opportunity as opposed to something going wrong. And then it's gently bringing myself back with, hey, that's not a thought that I choose in this moment. This is another thought that I want to choose instead. And to me, it's people think that's like rose-colored glasses, but actually it is the most important skill that you can amass, is being able to redirect your mind back to the thoughts, ideas, emotions that are important to you, because it starts and ends with how you think.
I love that. And how can one start to, or what are some signs one could see that they're beginning to heal, when they're able to say, okay, this is not the thought that I want in this moment, and I'm choosing to reframe or refocus my mind, right? How do we notice that we're beginning to hit that healing process?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. One, it's hard to see, like when you're shoveling a bunch of sand and you're actually making a ton of progress. And if you look behind you, you see all these barrels of sand, but sometimes you don't see it because you see more sand in front of you. So one of the things that I do is actually journaling, writing down my wins so I can see the progress. And then having people in my life, like like my mom the other day just remarked on the progress that she had seen a certain area of my growth, and like having people in my life who see as, oh wow, I didn't even see that, but obviously she's known me for forever, and so she's a barometer and a measurement for me. So having people in your life who can give you an objective point of view, and I think having a journal that so you can track your wins and see how far you've come.
Yeah, and what are some behavior activities one may also exhibit in that space when they begin to heal?
I think for my own personal self, I just found myself more allowing of other people, more allowing of myself, a less need to control things and others. And that is rooted in trust, knowing that, hey, regardless of what happens, I don't have to control this person. I don't have to control this circumstance. I do what I can do, but the things outside of my control, I'm more willing to allow them to be. I think that is a mark of healing, because that is a mark of confidence and trust and knowing that you'll be all right.
Yeah. Oh, you just mentioned trust. I think trust is a big mark when it comes down to healing. Pointing to trust, like how do we beginning to trust ourselves? Because I think that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people either stop going on that healing journey or never go on that healing journey.
Well, to me, when I'm going through something that's bigger than myself, I reach for something bigger than myself. And so I can't always trust me. Like I know that I'm a fallible human being who will make mistakes, but I can trust the divine that I'm an extension of. And I trust that I'm guided, and I trust that even though I may make mistakes, ultimately it is for my good and it's bringing me back toward the place where I need to be. So that's where I lean and get my trust from. I trust in something greater than myself. And then I think from for people who made that feel like a bit of a stretch from, are there people in your life whom you trust, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that that's always a challenge because people are fallible and we're all going to make mistakes and we all can't keep our attention on one another 100% of the time. But, I think community is also very important for many people as well, too, and that could help.
Absolutely. Working with your clients or working in the field that you worked in right now, how do you notice when someone is struggling with their mental health, or how can someone notice when they are struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, I think most people can probably have a sense of it. I think watching periods of isolation, feeling like things are always going wrong. Of course, if we're having feelings of depression, I think we can always feel when we're not feeling good. I think oftentimes if we can't recognize it because we're just so practiced in moving past it.
Yeah.
One of the things I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and she was saying that, hey, I just have these anxiety attacks that just kind of pop up, and sometimes they pop up out of nowhere. But when we were digging a little bit deeper, we were like, oh no, actually, I've been suppressing this feeling of stress. I've been having this situation with with my friend where we're not talking anymore. So all these little things that were piling up, and then she didn't have an awareness of it, and then it felt like it came out of nowhere. And so I think that's why these periods of reflection every morning are really critical for me, and I offer and invite anyone else to do them as well. So if it resonates, to stop every morning and every evening and ask myself, how am I feeling? What's going on within me? And is there anything within me that is keeping me from the love, the joy that I want to feel? What is it, and can I let it go right now?
Yeah. Yeah, because I asked this question because when I got into a depressive state, when I was a Sonoma state, I didn't recognize that I was also depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would consider myself as someone that was like functional depression or having a functional depression because I was on the basketball team. So my schedule was always on the go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
But when I fell into this depression, I didn't love basketball the same way that I used to love basketball. But I somewhat just thought, it's because I'm not playing at the level that I wanted to play. Why my school grade was still doing amazing. I was still performing very well in that. But here's this thing that I love for so long that you could wake me up anytime to go play, I'll do it. But here I am not wanting to go to practice, not wanting to be around my teammates, not even wanting to cheer my teammates on,
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of took a toll on me, and I didn't understand what was going on until I actually spoke to someone else. One of my counselors, and then she told me, we kind of walked through like the feelings that I've been feeling, and we figured like, okay, you're a bit depressed in this space. That's what's going on. And then from that, I was able to start my healing journey. But prior to that, I really didn't understand what was going on with me.
And how did you start your healing journey? What was your process like?
I started with meditation.
Yeah.
I started with also journaling and listening to a lot of Dr. Wayne Dyer. I will always give him credit for that. And also talking to my counselor. We went through a lot of the emotions that I was feeling in that moment. And all the backed up emotions that I have been suppressing to get to that point as well.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I love that.
yeah, it's been a journey. I feel like I think, and one of the things that showed me in all of this whole thing is self-reflection, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to be able to sit with self and be able to understand my own emotions and knowing what is going on with me and being able to process it and be able to identify like what emotion I'm feeling, what thought is causing me to
Mm-hmm.
feel the way I'm feeling. So that's whole, I don't know, that's been the whole journey and I enjoy it so far.
Yeah. Awareness is so key. It starts with awareness. If you don't have an awareness of what you're feeling, it's hard to change it.
I agree. I agree. When it comes down to also, because coming down to mental health, right? There's some form of grief to it. How do we move past grief?
Yeah, I know. I definitely had a big period of grief when when my dad passed. It was sudden and unexpected, and watched him die unexpectedly right in front of me. I had to give him CPR and all this sort of thing. And you know, no one kind of prepares you for that. So I definitely understand how grief can like really strike someone. I think the first thing for me with grief was learning how to just allow it, sit with it, and let it be. I think so often, I know for me, the tendency was to want to change it or push it away and move past it when you just have to let it pass through you. And that could be a period of a few hours. It could be a few months. And some people, it could be a couple years, you know, but understanding that it's a process and that grief comes and goes, and it comes and goes in waves, and understanding that first and foremost before, you know, rushing to think that something is wrong because you're still feeling this feeling. So that's the biggest thing I would say. I think grief has to be opened up to, and not suppressed. And so my biggest practice in meditation is extremely important for me, but allowing the grief and sitting with it and going through all the tremblers and the waves and everything that comes with it, and just allowing it and not trying to change it and not trying to fix it, I think is the very first and most important step when it comes to grief.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned something about not rushing to thinking that something is wrong, right? I feel like when it comes down to grief, that's something, where something is wrong about us. I
Mm-hmm.
think that when it comes down to grief, I feel like that's one of the things that I feel for myself that has held me back, and to the other people that I've spoken to. It's like we feel as if it was our fault, as
Mm-hmm.
we caused whatever happened, you know. And how do we, from your perspective, how do we take that load off ourselves?
Yeah, you're talking about the load of feeling like you were guilty
You're
in
the
some way,
one,
that something should,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that one, obviously the situation can vary depending upon what it is. But, you know, what I come back to is asking myself again, what if this happened exactly as it needed to happen? Like, for instance, as I think about like my dad in the past, and I was actually working with a shaman when we were going through this process, and he had asked me the question. He was like, quickly, I want you to quickly answer. Do you think that you should have saved him? And what I ultimately came to was no, because he was ready, although it didn't necessarily feel like, you know, that his life had run the course that it was meant to run. He did what he came here to do. And the grief that I felt was less about him, because he's gone on, he's fine, he's doing well. But the grief that I felt was me trying to hold on to something that can't be held on to. You know, this life is in, the only constant here is change, right? And so part of what grief is that we want to hold on to things as they were instead of allowing it to be what it is.
Mhm. Um, yeah, that was powerful. You know, I just needed a break from that just to take in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Not always easy. It's not easy. It's not
Yeah.
easy. But like everything else, it's a practice. And I think compassion for oneself is really, really key during grief. And so the feelings of guilt, they happen. It's very common, particularly when we're talking about the passing of a loved one or something like that. Or, you know, that's very common. I was talking to my mom when my dad passed. She felt guilty, like, oh, she could have done more. And it's just natural occurrence. Like, we're going to feel these things.
Yeah.
But to allow space for it and remember that these things are not appearing to tell us that they're true necessarily, but they are occurring to say, hey, you are thinking in a direction that your inner being doesn't think, that the higher self of you does not think, that if you are an extension of the divine, which is love, and you are practicing anything other than love in this moment for yourself or for others, then this feeling of grief is, while it's okay to have it, it's a signal to you to say, hey, I want you to go back in the other direction, because the other direction is where you belong.
Yeah. And what are some emotions that shows up when one is grieving, or some phases or stages that one could tell where they are in the grieving process?
Yeah, I mean, it shows up differently for everyone. I mean, for me, it showed up as, you know, wanting to isolate myself,
Mhm.
um, I had a hard time sleeping, hard time thinking. Um, um, for some people, it can feel like anger. It can feel like frustration. It shows up in so many ways.
Yeah.
I think that's where the self-reflection really and getting quiet is really important to ask yourself, like, what are you feeling now, and continually to check in. But it can, and then, so some people, it feels like, I mean, I was back to work a week later and doing stuff at work and going through my big corporate job and all that type of stuff. But I wasn't feeling it from the outside in. Looking in, you wouldn't know. So some people even are good at masking it, which is, not a good thing either. So it can show up in so many ways, but that's where, and I love the fact that you had a counselor too, because sometimes it's hard to do the work for ourselves. And so it's okay to reach out to other people who can help us see a different perspective or identify the ways in which we're covering up our grief and not even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, coming close to the end of our conversation, I want to ask you, I think self-love is one of those topics that even when I started this journey, I had people reach out to me and said how selfish I was, going through my self-love journey. But from my perspective, I know self-love is not selfish, right? It is actually selfless, because wanting to love yourself is loving others, right?
Yeah.
So from your perspective, how do you define self-love?
Yeah, I think love, when I think of love, I think love first and foremost gets associated with so many different things. And so when I think of love, I'm thinking about a divine love. I'm thinking about a love that is compassionate, that is healing, that is welcoming, that is unifying. That's when I think of love. So if you are loving yourself, it is anything but selfish, because love for self means love for others. Like, you can't love yourself and then hate others or judge others or exclude others. Like, it is a unifying love. It's an all-encompassing love. So that's what I think of when I think of self-love.
Yeah. And what are some actions people can take to begin this self-love journey?
Yeah, self-love. I remember when I started on my self-love journey, it felt hard to like love myself. I felt to be very critical of myself. I have a lot of demands of myself, and it was very hard to do it for myself. So what I did is just started to open up, like, what are the things, what are the people, what are the places that I can start to have a sense of love for, and start to expand that as best as I could. And then once I was able to expand it a little bit more, then I was able to start to direct it into myself more. So if it feels hard to do it right away, think of something that you can love, because once you invite love in, more love creates more love. And you can't practice love and hate at the same time, or anger and fear, or love and fear at the same time. You're doing one or the other. So if you're loving, even if you don't feel you're loving yourself in that moment, you're still loving. And that has a way of growing and expanding.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Do you I think do you believe in God? You mentioned a little bit about, you know, believing in something that is outside yourself, right? Do you believe in God?
Yeah, I mean, there's many different words. I mean, many different words I think you can use to describe God. Some people say the universe, the divine, inner being, whatever the case may be. Yes, I don't believe. I think believe is sometimes people that it's not as certain as a word as I would like. I mean, I know there's something greater than myself. I know that this planet is inspired by a divine being that unifies not just this planet, but the stars and everything else in there that we can't see. So certainly, I think that is the most important. That is what roots my life, and what gives me direction and sense of self, is knowing that I'm part of something much greater than what I can see.
And how do we, if someone doesn't, believe in something that's greater than them, right? Why is it important? I guess I would ask, why is it important to be able to have that type of belief for yourself, and believe or know that there's something greater outside of you?
I'm not sure that it's necessary for everyone to feel that way or believe that.
Mm.
Me, it's important for me, but I think an atheist can still live a very loving and compassionate life. Again, to me, I think about, like, do you love yourself and others? Are you really practicing that sincerely? And you can be an atheist and do that. And I would say that that person is more attuned to the divine than someone who is in a church and judging someone else because they're not practicing what they believe should be practiced. And so at the core of it, of what I feel is the divine greater than self, again, is this love with a capital L.
Yeah.
Because that is the unifying principle, I think, for all of us and what we all are striving for, even if we realize it or not.
I agree. Thank you so much again, Ryan, for joining me on Self Reflection Podcast. It has been amazing, listening to you talk. I somewhat want to ask you, like, can you do a meditation for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy
Oh,
to.
yes, that would be amazing. You have such a soothing voice. I was like, oh, Zen.
I love it. Maybe we can maybe you want to close out the podcast with a meditation.
I would love that. So guys, if you are listening to Self Reflection Podcast right now and you are busy, you might want to pause and wait for this part of the conversation. Ryan is going to help us close this conversation with us grounding ourselves and bringing us back to the present, because I think the lesson I think I have gained from this conversation is being able to bring yourself back to the present and knowing that the now is the one and only true moment, and also just feeling that worthiness from within thyself, and and being okay with letting go and letting people be. If you are doing something, go ahead and pause or come back to this part of the conversation. We're going to hop into a sweet meditation. I'm excited.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So you go ahead and we'll go ahead and turn off our video, Lira, so you can focus and that'll be easier for anyone else who's listening and won't be distracted with the images because I want them to go inward. So let's do a quick 5-minute meditation focused on self-love, since that's been the topic that's come up first and foremost or come up throughout this conversation. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I just want you to feel what's happening in your body. Whatever sensation is occurring, there may be a feeling in your leg or something in your arm, a tingling in your hands. I want you to just notice it. Don't try to label it. Even if you're feeling something that you would call pain, just drop that as best as you can, that label, and just feel and notice. And as you're having awareness of what's happening in your body, I want you to tune into the sounds as around you as best as you can. Whatever sounds that are occurring. Car passing by, conversation next door. No judgment, just hearing it. It doesn't impede your ability to be present. It actually can help you if you allow it to. Before this meditation, you can keep your eyes closed if you like. I find that just keeping my eyes open, slightly up, just kind of looking into the horizon, allows me to stay present. Sometimes when we close our eyes, it has to send you a bunch of images, because when you close your eyes, you generally are going to go to sleep. And so the brain sends these dream images to you. But if you are awake, then your eyes open, you're more likely to be present here and now. And let's root ourselves with our breath. We'll breathe in for a count of 5 and exhale for a count of 5. Starting now, breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5, breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And bring your attention now to your heart area. What are you feeling in that space? The space in your heart and around your heart. And see if from that heart area you can start to emit a feeling of joy, compassion, love. An easy way to do this is think about something in your life that already generates those feelings for you. For me, I like to think about the sunshine, nature, the trees. I think about how magnificent divinity is and how grand it is and how extravagant it is. And that always inspires me, opens my heart, makes me think about possibilities. And see if you can radiate as best as you can a little bit of that feeling of love to yourself. Can you forgive yourself for anything that you may be carrying? Just like a child, and you see a child fall down and make a mistake, you wouldn't condemn that child. You would give it love and compassion, appreciation for trying. And at the core of us, that's where we are. We're within us is still that child that still is looking for compassion and love from us. And so can you give that child a little bit more love, a little bit more appreciation? And if thoughts come and go, just let them come and go. That's okay. Remember to return to your breath. And we'll do one more cycle of our breath to close us out. Breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And if this meditation was easy for you, or if it was difficult, either way, you are on your path. Nothing has gone wrong. You are right where you are supposed to be. And everything that is happening is for your growth and for your expansion, if you will trust and allow it and be willing to see it. Thank you.
Wow. Like, back to life. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I'm like, do you want to do meditations on self-reflection every week? Wow, yes. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope that you guys also enjoyed this meditation as much as I did. Ryan, thank you one more time for joining us on Self-Reflection Podcast. Do you have any final words you would like to leave with us here?
No, I want to just encourage you all to stay on the path, that you're on your path. If for those of you who have listened, thank you for listening. May you continue to be blessed. May you continue to find the light within you and know that you don't have to go searching for it. The only place you have to go looking for it is within, and is there and is readily available for you to find if you will go inward and trust that it's there. So thank you, Lira, for giving me the opportunity for anyone who wants to reach out and contact me, I'm on all my socials is ryanjustinjackson.com. Excuse me, ryanjustinjackson.com is my website, and then also all my socials is Ryan Justin Jackson. So thank you so much, Lira, for the opportunity.
Thank you. I feel blessed to have crossed paths with you. And also thank you for blessing us on Self-Reflection Podcast. Having your presence here, I feel like it has brought a different energy to the podcast. So I truly appreciate that from you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's been amazing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you guys again so much for joining me on Self-Reflection Podcast. I hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast episode as much as I did. Also, continue to listen to Self-Reflection Podcast because I feel like, it's only going to get good from here because this was an amazing kickoff with Ryan. I want to thank everyone that has subscribed to Self-Reflection Podcast. You guys mean so much to me. This has been an incredible journey the past 4 years, and I don't think I would have been able to do it without you guys. So thank you so much. If you have yet to subscribe to Self-Reflection Podcast, please go ahead and do so. Leave us a comment. I'll appreciate it, and it will mean so much to me as we seek to grow here on Self-Reflection Podcast. And, until next time, guys, take care of yourself, love yourself, be kind, and be gentle with yourself. Bye for now.